Thank you. Yes, my name is Martin Booth. I'm a Cromer resident and I'm part of the Save Benjamin Court campaign. And so my question is about Benjamin Court. It's a very short question, so I'll just, with the time I've got, put a little bit of context. I'm sure most, if not all of you, councillors are aware of the situation that Benjamin Court in Cromer has been sitting empty since July of last year, when the County Council decided to withdraw the reablement service from it without any consultation. And since then, our campaign group has been campaigning for it to be reopened for reablement and rehabilitation for those discharged from hospital who are not yet ready to go home. And I'm very grateful to this council, to yourselves, for the strong support that you've shown for that aim. A number of parish councils as well have also expressed their support and spoken up about it. The NHS Norfolk and Waveney Integrated Care Board conducted a public engagement exercise, which included a Health Watch survey in which 295 people responded. 79% said that they wanted Benjamin Court reopened for rehabilitation and reablement, and the other 21% wanted it reopened for some sort of health and care use. But despite that, the ICB at the end of September said, well, that's all very well, but it doesn't fit our model of care. We don't think it's financially viable. So they're ending their involvement with Benjamin Court and handing it back to NHS Property Services, who actually own the building, basically to dispose of it. I mean, we were pretty appalled by this, and we're challenging them. There's a meeting next week of the board. We've got questions going to them. This is in a context where we got figures that show that around £10 million a month is being wasted on people who are stuck in hospital because they've got nowhere else to go across Norfolk and Waveney. And that's leaving out the local element here in North Norfolk. But of course, meanwhile, the concern is that it's been handed to NHS Property Services. What's going to happen to the building, to Benjamin Court? It could well be that in the future there may be a decision to say, yes, we do need such a facility. The building will have gone. So in that light, the question that I'm asking is this. As North Norfolk District Council has consistently supported the call for Benjamin Court to be reopened for health and care use, will the council directly approach NHS Property Services to ensure that the site will continue to be used for this purpose? That's a question.
So, Councillor Adams, do you want to respond now, or should we move on to?
I don't mind responding as a preamble
yes.
to the item, if you like. So, I just wanted to say, first of all, we have obviously written to the government again on this matter, and we certainly feel the outcomes we've reached at this point are at odds with the Health in an Ageing Society report, the well-known Christopher Whitty report, and that we feel really the health services are moving with undue haste towards the disposal of this property. And it's quite ridiculous when you consider we've got a relatively modern clinical setting that's sat there empty, that could be serving the needs of certainly residents across this district, but certainly the patients, particularly at the Norfolk and Norwich Hospital. So I welcome the continued efforts, certainly of the campaigners, but very grateful for the attention given to these matters by the overview and scrutiny members of this council as well. And we certainly need to continue to question relevant NHS departments, including NHS estates. We'll certainly keep everyone informed of our dialogue with the government in due course. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Mr. Booth, did you have any response to that, or no? That's it. Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, beg your pardon, everybody. So item 12, is an update on the Benjamin Court facility. Do you have anything to add, either councillor Adams or Officer Blatch, to what you've already said?
Thank you, Chair. Recognising the decision and recommendations from the Overend Scrutiny Committee at their meeting of the 16th of October, when there were three recommendations made. In terms of the first issue around the availability of data in terms of the numbers of people that are in acute hospitals in Norfolk the data we included within our submission to the Health Watch engagement process in July. We haven't been able to update that in the period since the ONS meeting on the 16th of October, in that I've been absent from the office for some time in terms of leave and other commitments. We have made inquiries of the Norfolk Virtual Ward pilot scheme, which has only gone live in North Norfolk relatively recently. And we are seeking responses from Norfolk Social Services, Norfolk First Support Programme about the quality of experiences of the service in terms of availability of carers, which was raised by local stakeholders as part of the engagement process with Health Watch Norfolk. But we haven't received any information around that in terms of the availability of carers, how often the recipients of those services may be returned to hospital because they're unable to make that adaptation or move to independence following hospital discharge. So I think that the data we had in July suggested that about 20% of beds at the Norfolk and Norwich Hospital, perhaps a slightly lower number in the QE at Kings Lynn and the James Paget at Galston at any one time were occupied by people who were medically fit for discharge but needed support to return home or were awaiting a placement in a care home or adaptations to their property. And that comes at a significant cost, in that I understand that the cost of an acute hospital bed per night is about 3 times as much as a bed in a reablement or convalescent recuperation type environment where care is provided but not medical intervention. In terms of representations to NHS England Property Services, we haven't received any communication from them centrally as to their intentions to market or dispose of the facility as yet. I don't think that comes as a surprise, in the ICB position was only determined at the end of September, so we're only 6 weeks past that date. But I'm happy, on the basis of Mr. Booth's question, for us to instigate that approach to them directly to ask what their intentions are so that we can understand that position more clearly. I think that would be helpful to the campaign and to local stakeholders and the community in Cromer and the wider North Norfolk district, so that we can consider our position further. There was also in the engagement, Health Watch engagement response, a suggestion that there was a demand for a small office or base space for community nursing team, and we could accommodate technically that demand or need for accommodation here in this building, as our own floor space requirements have changed, and we are in contact with the service provider about whether those needs can be met from this building, and those conversations are being progressed by the council's estates team.
Any members have any more to say at Benjamin Court before we move on?
Well, I would just welcome the council's endorsement really of that position, that we do seek to make contact with NHS estates, and certainly, as I said before, really welcome the interest that the relevant committees had in this item. So perhaps we can consider reporting back there in due course as we learn more. It's important we keep this in the frame, as it were, keep it in the public domain, and really, you know, the winter will be very telling in terms of the pressures that are put on NHS acute services in our county as a whole. So yeah, certainly just wanted to really endorse the position and hope that the council is comfortable with that. Thank you.
Any other? Councillor Billington.
Thank
Councillor
you.
Billington, then Councillor Dixon.
Thank you. In regard of the information that you've reminded of us from the July figures of the number of people who are currently in acute beds who could be discharged to another more suitable environment, I think it's important that we do keep monitoring those figures, in particular as the virtual ward has now come on stream and is working. As to whether that's effective or not, I think will be shown in those figures. So I think it's really important because the actual capacity of that virtual ward, as I understand it at the moment, is 15 patients a day, which the whole of North Norfolk is not a significant number of people. So it will be interesting to see how that service is impacting on discharging safely to our communities. So I do hope that we will and feedback to this council on that continued monitoring. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In respect of the recommendations from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee on this matter, I just probably should add that, yes, we set an expectation that the matter would be considered at this meeting, and that would be on the basis of an update, and that's precisely what you've got on the agenda tonight. I think there was no expectation that there was going to be an outcome necessarily, but it was going to be ongoing work in progress. And I suspect that will be the case for some time yet. Having read all the papers that were supplied by the Chief Executive, I see that there's a lot going on or has been going on. There's still some more work that can be done. And the expectation is that there may be some clarity around the position of justifying data one way or another. And I think we've got to allow time for that process to produce that outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think when we look at care and carers, we think about maybe their visits to our vulnerable people, maybe twice, maybe 3 times in the daytime. But speaking from experience, it's the night times. It's the night times when vulnerable people are most at risk when they're on their own. And it's the night times when the carers are the most vulnerable, when they need to be lifted to the toilet, or they need another need met, or they're just plain scared. It's the night times that this facility helps with the most, I feel, because we can put carers in the daytime. It's very difficult to get carers for nighttime and overnight as well. So having a facility that looks after our vulnerable people 24 hours a day, I don't think can be underestimated. And I was at that meeting when the Chief Executive of Norfolk and Waveney was here. And I said exactly the same thing. And that was the echo from all you great supporters as well that have been banging that drum. And it went unheeded. It was a foregone conclusion. So yes, we fight on. And if there are other ways of using that building to the benefit of our communities, then we will find that too. But we won't give up this fight because it's a precious building. Thank you.
So do we have a mechanism for data collection as mentioned by Councillor Withington?
Yes, we do have a resource in the council, a data analyst, and she is giving her attention to this matter. And we are using contacts within the wider health and adult social care system to build our understanding and test the assumptions around those data sets in the way that Councillor Withington alluded to in terms of how the virtual ward is working. I wasn't aware that that arrangement only meets the needs of 15 patients per day at any one time. And again, that's something that I think we do need to understand, because if 20% of beds in the Norfolk and Norwich Hospital, which does serve obviously a very wide geography, all of most of North Norfolk, all of Broadland, South Norfolk, City of Norwich, and parts of the Breckland district. But if there are 20% of beds at the Norfolk and Norwich which have people who are capable of hospital discharge but don't have an appropriate setting to go to or support at home, that's 200 bed nights in the acute hospital that are in that system and are having their needs met in that environment, rather than a step down environment where perhaps more individual care or family support could be provided. And I think what we saw through the campaign and the representations that were made to the engagement process conducted by Healthwatch Norfolk was that, particularly in Benjamin Court, where there were private or individual ensuite rooms, that family members, partners and carers could aid and support people during their recovery and reablement. They weren't restricted to visiting times, which was just 2 till 4 or 6 till 8 in the evening, that some people were supported in their recuperation by having visitors or family members or whatever over a longer period during the day. And so there was, there was the support which Councillor Fredericks has mentioned in terms of staffed or oversight at night times or evenings or whatever, but during the daytime those intervention levels or staffing levels could be ameliorated or stretched further by people that wanted to provide support to care and loved ones. And I think that's what the Professor Chris Whitty report about ageing said, and about North Norfolk's particular demographics. If you live in the North Norfolk district, you've retired here or you age here, and you then lose a partner or your partner is incapacitated, and you are dependent upon public transport, friends or neighbours to take you to the Norfolk and Norwich University Hospital to visit somebody, and many people want to do that on a daily basis, that is a very significant commitment, both financially and in terms, and that can't be substituted. The value of a facility like Benjamin Court in our North Norfolk district cannot be underestimated in terms of that value and the quality of life and care experience that both the patient and the family members or households are able to experience. Because getting on a bus or a train and then having to get a bus out to the NNN is a big commitment for a frail elderly person. And for many people, that's a very difficult time in their lives when they may be suffering or experiencing less mobility themselves. They may not be able to drive. They're dependent upon friends and neighbours, and they may be feeling vulnerable by being at home on their own. So there's a lot that is at play here in terms of the nature of that care and the value of that facility. And I think that was outlined in the Healthwatch engagement process and the submissions that people saw or submitted. And the conclusions of Healthwatch Norfolk was that those issues should be investigated further before a decision was made. And I am on record as part of that process of saying that we understand that the system is under very acute pressure, but having something that is so centralised in Norwich doesn't meet the needs of our communities and our demographics.